Today we're sitting with Watch Eric to show him a watch he came in to see specifically, but I pulled out a couple other ones that we've talked about in the past. Let's see if we could wow him. All right, so let's start with what you came to see, all right? Behind door number 1, we have a matte dial 1675 GMT circa 1970, but as Eric has shown us in the past and his wife has shown us in the past, he has an affinity for Tiffany & Co. branded watches. So we got a nice one in. Take a look at it, and there's a couple cool, quirky things about that watch that are interesting that I wanted to point out to you. You've probably never seen before. So first of all, the signature on that is the long signature that they used during that era, which is cool. But if you loop it, it's a slightly different shade color, which you see on some of the earlier ones. Like it has like a yellow hue to it, which is very cool. I'm not sure if it was like a paint thing or just like an aging thing. No one's really sure, but I've had it on like a 1680 before in the past. I think I had it on a Daytona once. It's something interesting and cool. It's not like affects the value, just cool to see. The other thing cool about that one is that on a lot of the early ones, the back lugs, and actually throughout all of the production of Tiffany, on the back of the lug, they would engrave a stock number.
This has it?
This has most of it. So they were literally done by hand, just kind of like really crude, and you can make out the first like 3 numbers. It's either like 101 or 110, which fits within the right range of this watch compared to other examples we know that have the stock number on them. Most of them at this point don't anymore because they were so light they got polished off, or
so that helps authenticate it.
It helps authenticate a little bit. You can't make out the other 3 numbers because of the bracelet scratching against it. But it's cool that you can see some of it. If you loop right there, you'll see their scratch inventory number. So it's kind of cool. We can't get the full number, but not that it really matters. It's cool that you know that it like fits within the range of other Tiffany's from the era. Like right where it should be other ones confirmed, like 6 digits starting with a 1 in that period, which is cool. So watch is really nice. You asked me to hold it so you can come take a look. Strong case, perfect dial.
Yeah, I feel like I'm a sucker for these watches. I mean, when I sent you the message, you told me, you almost put it like in capital letters, you already have one. And
well, you have a sapphire one, so I was like,
that's why I was like, technically I don't have this one.
Yeah.
You know, ideally, I would like all 4.
There was a bunch of auctions over the weekend. Christie, Sotheby's, Phillips. Surprisingly strong results for. I was bidding on another one. There was a 1675 in the auction, and it went for too much money. Like it sold for like a nice retail price. You know, like it's just nothing for me to do above that.
You know, it's interesting for me to mention, because I've been wanting to ask you about that. That although people will sit there and say that the watch market right now is slow or dead or blah or whatever, look. It is what it is. But the auction seemed to be kind of bumping on pieces, right?
I bid on around 20 lots in Christie's and Sotheby's, and then I bid on 2 more on behalf of clients in Phillips. I won 1 watch for myself in Christie's, I think it was, or Sotheby's, one of the 2. And I did not win any for my clients in Phillips. Now, there were some results that were lackluster, but like good vintage went. I mean, listen, I usually have like a 30% success rate in buying from auction. Like, let's say I bid on 10 watches, I'll win 3. I literally went 1 for 20. So the results were good. I mean, good vintage is still good vintage. It's still hard to find.
I think that's a good indicator, at least for example, like someone like me that's buying this watch. You're always going to think about, you know, should I buy this? What's the long-term goal with it? Will it hold
the market?
Not
for that,
all of it, but most of it,
right.
You know?
So like with all of like 4-digit Rolex, for example, there's been, the market's the same. If it goes up globally, it goes down globally, it's going to affect all models more or less. And I've noticed though a constant that the fluctuations in the 4-digit matte dial sports Rolex watches has remained pretty constant and, you know, fluctuate 10-15%, but it hasn't gotten crushed like some of the Royal Oaks, some of the Nautiluses. Like, for example, there was a couple Nautiluses, 3700s in the auction, co-signed Goublon. There's one that was a full set, Goublon papers, Patek papers, everything, beautiful dial, and it sold for like $145,000. Now, last year, that would have been a $250K watch.
Yeah.
Like, just huge drop off. Whereas 6263s, I bid on a bunch of them over the weekend. Daytonas, like I have behind door number 2. Sorry to tease it. All remained strong. Like, all sold for great numbers, you know, like hard to buy as a dealer. So, yeah, I think with good vintage, like if the watch is really nice and special, like it's the prices remain somewhat, because they're not easy to find. Like a watch like that's not easy to find.
Yeah.
And one that like speaks to you. There's one, for example, right now in auction on Loop This, and I think the biddings there's still a few days left, and the bidding's already like in the mid-20s, and it has no patina. It's nice. It's all original. You know what I'm saying? But like it's just like a white dial.
Yeah.
So like it's, you know, the insert is not very sexy.
Yeah. I need to have a little bit of patina to give that, like, I don't know, that attraction, that look for me.
Right.
I have right now, when you said you already have a Tiffany, and it's like, yes, I do, but I have a 4-digit sub and a 5-digit GMT.
Right.
But I kind of want to have, you know, a Tiffany of each.
Right.
So I can have the set of 4, you know?
Yeah, listen, is there worse places to park your money? I mean, look, even, you know, what you had on your wrist, FP Journe, you know, the market went crazy bananas in the past 5 years, you know? The results this past weekend were a little soft, you know? The market is certainly cooling off after like a very strong bull run. It's a great buyer's market, I think, for these watches now. And I think in the long term, these will hold well, because FP Journe is just such a legend and such a visionary, and really like paved the way for all independent watchmakers going forward now. But that being said, there's been a lot on the market. He makes very few pieces, like 900 watches a year. But there's a lot of them on the market right now. Whenever prices go sky high,
people are trying to get out too, you know? It's just like stocks almost, you know?
Yeah, well, exactly. When you're at the top, somebody who bought it at the bottom is like, okay, now it's time for me to sell and like take that profit and move on with my life. And everybody rushes to sell at the same time. That's what happened with like the Royal Oak perpetual market. Like Phillips had that sale where there were crazy results. And the week after that sale, I had 10 clients call me like, hey, time to sell mine. And I'm like, everybody's rushing to sell at the same time, because like some random watch that used to be 150 grand sold for 500 in auction. So everybody's like, oh my God, my watch is now worth that, which is not true. But
it's quite surprising to me though, the results, because I follow the auctions myself, but I also like to follow when you go to the auctions and what you're looking at. And it just surprises me how much big money some of these important watches are getting. When people are saying that, you know, it doesn't matter what they say, but that watches are dead. But it's like, dude, like Marlon Brando's watch sold for like crazy money.
Well, that whole auction now is on a pause because the consignor is suing Christie's because he thinks, oh, you don't know that story?
No.
Ooh, that's another video. But another example, let's say, okay, Sotheby's this weekend auctioned off a head-only 14-karat John Player Special Gold Paul Newman. Okay, by all estimations, it was in excellent condition, apparently from the family of the original owner. But all estimations, the market's in the toilet, and that watch should be $750, $800K, back to where it was 3 years ago. Let's say it's all 1.55.
That's where I'm getting at. And I feel that. And I feel that in those auctions, the watches that are getting the big numbers are the special dials, special this. You know, Prezi with a special stone dial. With
another
diamonds,
nice example. You know? There was a Patek Philippe chronograph, one of my favorite references, 1463, in yellow gold, co-signed Tiffany & Co. So you'll like it. But it had a wild patina dial. It was almost like a caramel color. It was beautiful, but like with Patek collectors, especially vintage collectors, they generally don't like patina on the dial. Vintage Patek collectors usually want no patina. They want it looking brand new. So the estimate was 200 to 400. It was a client of mine's watch. I surprisingly know what he paid. He bought it from somebody else, not from me. And he paid a big number for the watch. And I was like, oh, I hope he does okay. Like, I hope he doesn't like lose his ass. Dude, the thing sold for like over 600 grand, well above what he paid, you know? And it was like, that's shocking. Had to be a world record for that watch. But the watch was, I mean, for me, I did a review of Sotheby's preview while I was in Geneva, and I reviewed like 4 watches that they had in that sale, and that was my favorite. I was like, that watch is incredible. So special vintage is still special vintage.
Yeah, well, it's crazy. You know, I had a guy comment the other day, not comment, but he said something to me that, you know, the watch market is dead. You know, prices are falling X percentage. This is happening, that is happening, like several things. And I said, look, man, I mean, Cristiano Ronaldo just bought into Chrono 24. I don't think that guy's an idiot. You know, he's got advisors that are helping him make these investments. You have record sales in these auctions lately. Those guys that are buying those watches are not idiots either. You're putting 1.4 into a watch.
I mean, listen, it's no surprise that prices have come down on modern, on vintage, across the board. Like the market is a lot slower than it was at its peak. But if you compare it back to where it was like in 2019, which was still a healthy market.
Absolutely.
And I think it's a good thing when prices come down, because I have a lot of people that are now re-entering the market because they could afford what they want. So a lot of the speculators are out that are just driving up the price of ceramic Daytona just because for no reason, you know? I think stability is a good thing. You know, and you buy and sell at just a normal margin, like normal, like just do normal business. Like
I'm okay with that, man.
I'm okay with that.
That's where we live at.
I'm just happy with consistency, which I've seen. I have nothing to complain about because we're still selling. And we're selling at fair market value prices consistently, and that's that. It sucks. I had to explain to somebody on the phone actually yesterday. He had bought from me a 5402 Royal Oak Jumbo, original reference Jumbo Royal Oak at the peak. And I was, obviously the watch is worth a lot less now. And I was like, look, you have a collection that's worth less. I have a huge inventory that's worth a lot less. We're all in this together. When the market goes up, the market goes down. All of our watches appreciate or depreciate at the same rate. Doesn't matter. Dealer, collector, speculator, hedge fund that's buying up watches. It's the same for all of us, And it sucks when you lose money and a watch goes down in value, but it is what it is. And you try to reignite the passion.
At least I get to use the watch. Bitcoin, it's like fairy dust gone.
So speaking of that client, he actually wants to sell his 3700 to buy this, but I wanted to show it to you. I don't think you would buy it, but we've talked about it.
Before you show me that.
We've talked about you buying one.
Yes, well, hold on. Before you show, I wanted to mention about this real quick, that when I see these type of watches, the most important thing that I look at is, one, that the case is fat, which this is.
Right.
I love the look of a fat case.
Yeah.
And obviously the dial in the hands has to have that look with the patina or the stamp or whatever that attracts me. The insert, I know that I can always change.
Right.
Crystal can be changed. This particular bracelet is not my favorite bracelet.
But that's the original. It's dated bracelet.
But that's
original.
Fine.
Yeah.
But
you can change the bracelet.
But I can put this away, and I can put a different bracelet and wear it, and that's acceptable, right? Like
of course.
In the vintage world, it's not like frowned upon.
If you keep the original parts, no problem.
Yeah. So
wear it whatever you want.
I would just put a little bit more of a modern GMT bracelet. That's all.
Yeah,
but
it's no big deal.
I wanted to tell you, I love the watch, and those are the things I look for. So everybody looks for different things.
But like you look for stuff that you gravitate towards, which I always appreciate about you. Like you're not like some crazy vintage collector that is buying up all these crazy stuff. You just like see something, you like it. As long as it's the right condition, right parameters, you buy it. And that's what it should be. I think I was just in Bali for this big vintage collectors gathering, and it was really refreshing to see a lot of the watches that were pulled out, because not all of them were perfect. It wasn't just like 10 out of 10 watches and off-brand stuff and quirky stuff, and it was clear that it was like what people liked.
How was that experience over there?
It was awesome. It's the second time I've done it. Group of guys that come out is awesome. Everybody's just like, everybody's there to have a good time and be friends,
And just talk about, it's like a car show, but for watches.
Car show, but for watches.
And a show meaning like nothing's for sale. We just want to show our stuff off.
Exactly. Absolutely. Like, I mean, listen, there was stuff from certain dealers that were for sale, but like quietly, not like, here's a price tag on it, if you wanted something, you could ask, hey, is it for sale?
Yeah, it was mostly like a show, like show your stuff.
No, it was 3 days of all of us hanging out, like at the beach, the pool, going to dinners, it was so much fun.
Awesome.
We've talked about 66s before. I just got this one in. I just want to show it to you. I don't think it's for you. I think you wanted a big red one, but this is cool because I know you like quirky co-branded stuff. This isn't quite co-branded, but this was issued to the Peruvian Air Force. They call it FAP. So you see on the back there is an engraving. You'll be able to pronounce that better than me, probably.
Fuerza Aérea del Perú.
Yes, I said it on a video yesterday, and I think people were laughing at me because
give him a break.
Give me a break. But the condition on it's beautiful. I was excited to get it in just because the condition is like spectacular.
I like all Daytonas, all of them. I just gravitate towards Daytonas, mostly. Oh, actually subs and GMTs, whatever.
Right.
I like the ones with this Bakelite, correct?
Right.
Bakelite bezel the best because I like the contrast.
Yeah.
I
think that's why they brought it back for the 116500, because the 116520 and Zenith before that 16520 had steel bezels, and I think that's why that watch was so successful, because they brought back a black ceramic contrasting bezel that really mimicked the original ones.
One is amazing with the white ring.
I haven't
around
seen one
it.
in person yet.
I've already seen several of them.
Yeah.
Once you add that metallic ring around the ceramic, it's like.
Well, I saw it in Watches and Wonders when it came out, but I haven't held it.
I don't know. I don't know what they can possibly do in the future now to perfect that watch anymore. Like, I think we're at the finish line with it.
Yeah. So those watches are cool, and that they're Peruvian issued, because the only other watch that has the serial number in between the lugs and inside the case back is a double red sea dweller, and they did that on those watches as well. There are some Kanjar watches that have it as well, but generally, that's how you know that watch was born and issued to Peruvian Air Force because it has matching serial numbers, which is like impossible to replicate. And surprisingly, I was telling somebody the other day is that a lot of these were polished off. Like you'll get a watch in and it has the serial number inside the case back, but it no longer has that engraving on the back because for some reason, like in the early 90s, early 2000s, nobody wanted Peruvian Air Force stuff. They're like, what is this crap? You know?
Yes,
and
yes.
they polished it off to make it look like just like a normal Daytona or a normal red sub or a normal GMT. And so a lot of them are missing the FAP engravings on the back. Which is
How do you feel about the screw lock buttons? Do you like better just the regular pushers?
So personally, because of the way my wrist is shaped, I like pump pushers better than screw down. It wears a little bit smaller, but I like smaller watches. But I mean, listen, screw down pushers, they go for more money. They're more popular for a reason.
My gravitation towards this look is not even so much. I wish it was actually the cheaper version of it.
Right.
It just so happens, of course, I just like the look of it. It just looks.
You like the most expensive version of it.
Yeah, I feel like the other ones look a little bit older,
Right.
which is good too. But I mean, like I said, I've never grabbed one before and I liked it.
Right.
It's just when it's my turn to buy one, I want one either like this or this combination in gold.
I pulled it out because I don't think I've ever shown you one in person, so I wanted you to be able to like finally see it because we've talked about them in the past. I know you're not there yet. They're certainly awesome watches. You know, I think for you get like a big red, you get just like a normal, 626.3 big red, silver, or black. You know,
Yeah,
you don't pay.
I'll be
you don't,
fine with either one.
Yeah,
silver
you don't
or
need to
black.
pay the FAP premium because you're not, a military watch collector or just,
I mean, I wish I can get a mil-spec sub. They're just so out of control. I'm like, I know I can do it.
Those are watches like you'd expect them to have like gone down in this like quiet market, down market, and like, no, sir.
I'd rather enjoy more of these. And
So this just came in yesterday as I was closing the office. It's something I know you've wanted before.
Oh my God, why are you doing
and
this
the
to me
watch
right now?
is friggin' mint.
Why are you doing
like probably the nicest one I've ever had.
this is a setup, guys.
It is. It's a complete setup to get him to spend money. Box papers, but insane condition. Fresh out of South America with actually a rare South American bracelet. We have 1675 in solid gold, early version with a matte dial, a matte brown applied logo dial. Just look at the condition. So the cool thing is that this was born out of South America, and because of import restrictions, they don't have, from that era, Swiss branded gold bracelets because of import problems with gold and stuff like that. So they had to have the watches made in South America and stamped Rolex in South America.
Yeah.
And there was one famous band maker called DeGusto. And so you'll see the initials DA signed in there. And they're actually very, very hard to find, and they're very hard to find in good condition.
Correct. A lot of them are used and abused.
Abused. And a lot of them get melted, surprisingly, out of South America.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because they just think it's worth more melting it for gold. And I'm like, stop doing that.
I've ever seen one like this. Usually they're kind of beat. Wow. What does something like this in the retail market go for?
I'll probably be listing it for $45,000.
Nice.
Yeah.
Man, this is a stud. A super
Stud watch. Yeah, like I said, it's probably the nicest one I've ever had.
Random question. The links for these South American braces are not interchangeable with the Swiss, right?
No.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
No. You could remove them so they don't have screws, but you could take them to, like there's a guy downtown who actually just did it for me on an 1803 band, because there are pins in there. They're just covered by gold. Yeah. So what they do is they have to like put like a little drill in there, pull the pin out.
There's a guy I use that's
it's not hard to do.
Open them too.
Yeah, exactly. It's not hard to do.
Wow, this thing is really nice. It goes again to what I was saying. Like, I like the look of the case, looking as original as possible. Yeah. It gives the watch more presence. When they're over polished, it just starts looking like an old watch, not like a vintage watch. And then of course, dial hands. Crystal, you can always change or polish. The hardest thing about these older watches, like I'm looking for the 1680, is the bracelet. You can't get one with the nice bracelet. Hard to find.
Oh, but in gold, yeah.
In gold.
In gold, it's impossible.
In gold, it's hard.
Forget it.
Like, I'm thinking that I'm going to have to just end up buying a really, really nice head.
Right.
And then I'll just get a more modern gold bracelet or something.
It's crazy, because I remember years and years ago, like being offered like solid gold GMT sub bracelet, whatever, for like $3,000, $3,500. And I'm like, I just don't need them. No point in buying them. Need them. And now, listen, I'll pay.
Because I've sat there and tried to look for one.
I'll pay $8,000 to $10,000 for a solid gold oyster bracelet that's period correct for a watch like that. Because you just can't get it.
Wow.
Last store.
Oh my God.
You wanted to see this, so I pulled it out.
Oh, the blue?
The blue.
Oh, waving it in front of everybody's face on the IG.
Dude, this was like the hottest ticket in Bali.
You took that?
Yeah.
What'd you wear?
So actually, most of the time I was there, I wore reference 8029, which is an oversized precision from the 40s.
Oh, wow.
Cosigned Serpico and lino. Serpico lino on the back, like
Yeah.
beautiful. Had like nice patina on the dial, like beautiful original watch. I wore also my Blancpain swatch a lot of the time when I went swimming.
Yeah.
So that was on my wrist a lot.
All right.
I brought this. I brought an 18039 with a green Jasper dial, like one of like 5 known in the world.
Yeah, that one's crazy. That watch is
Crazy watch.
You think that one got
This was the most
attention?
popular watch, yeah, because you just never see it.
So tell me exactly
Okay,
what is the point about it.
It is a solid gold Zenith Daytona, reference 16528 from 1991. As the story goes, it's nicknamed the Chairman, and it was allegedly made for the executives at Rolex to be given out as gifts, or if you worked there and you were higher up, you could order it, like special order it, you know? So it's not a piece unique because there's like 12 or 16 of them made.
How crazy was that that's like, yes, we're going to make the blue dial, but it's not available to everybody else.
Right.
It's only available to us.
And I think that's why, we've seen a few of them come to market in auction in the past 5 years.
Yeah.
And the timing makes sense because if you bought this and gave it to somebody in 1991, somebody just recently inherited it.
Yeah.
Like a grandson or, a nephew or somebody inherited it and
Yeah.
they're like, okay, I don't care about this watch, time to sell. The timing makes sense.
Yeah.
Because there's been 3 or 4 in auction in the past, let's say 6 years. Stunning blue sunburst dial, just like you just never see. You see a blue dial on modern white gold Daytona now, but something you just never see. And the dial color is just pops. Everybody confuses it for a regular black dial Zenith until they like pick it up and they're like, holy shit.
Again, the condition on this one is like a 10.
Well, it's unpolished, sticker on the back. It's been worn.
For me, a vintage watch like this is a 10 for me. You see it's so perfect.
Yeah.
Then it's like, well, it's either it has never been worn, which would be not even a 10, that's a unicorn.
So I'd say that those watches are in mint vintage condition.
Yes, of
People
course.
don't understand that. And they're like, but it's so scratched up, it's
but
used.
never
And I'm
been
like, I didn't
polished,
say
and
it was
and
new
it was
old.
not abused.
Right.
It looks nice.
I tell people, I'm not saying it's new old stock. I'm not saying it's
Yes.
perfect. I'm saying for a vintage watch, what vintage collectors are looking for, like perfect dial, not reloomed, unpolished, that's mint condition, for vintage, within those
This thing is
parameters.
badass.
Crazy watch. It was owned by a famous musician also out of California, who's a big watch collector, and he sold it a year and a half ago. I sold it to a big client in Canada.
Why the hell would he sell this?
He's a guy apparently who goes through cars, watches, and art. Like he changes his mind and just like squirrel, see something else.
He's probably one of those that just enjoys more like the chase.
Yeah.
And then once
I
you
think
have it for a little while, he needs to, move things around and go and do more chases.
He's well known for like owning some of the craziest watches and then selling them, and everybody's like, "Why would you sell that?"
What does something like this cost for retail? Like,
I have it listed on the website for $425.
Jesus.
Which is the most expensive one at auction, which was a couple years ago, sold for $400, and there hasn't been one available since.
Look at that, man.
Yeah.
It's like,
So I'm asking a little bit above the highest result, but it's an irreplaceable watch. Once I saw that, the odds of me getting another one are slim.
the condition is unbelievable. I love the condition on it. Looks unpolished, doesn't have any major dents anywhere.
Yeah. No, it's
Just
scuffed up. It's been worn.
You can
It's been
actually
used.
wear this watch. Okay, if this was a new old stock, and let's say it was $500,000,
Right.
when the hell are you gonna wear it?
Never. You never.
This is
every
something
time
you
I
could put
sell
on and now worry about it.
every time I sell a new old stock vintage watch, I generally tell the buyer, like, hey, understand that, you can wear it if you want, but my advice would be to just stick it in the safe. Buy something else to wear, just because a lot of the value is derived from it being
Does
old
that
stock.
papers and everything?
No, I've actually never seen one of those sold with papers.
I get it.
No, my point is that I think
They didn't
I
give
can't verify
they didn't
this.
give them papers. Yeah,
Right. They were sold internally
it wasn't
without
sold
papers.
to the public. So
Right.
what do you need papers for?
That one had a service card, which I can't find now. It's been to Rolex papers.
I'm so scared of something like this to Rolex.
Well, it's just you're worried they're going to polish the case or something like that.
Yeah.
Apparently, so I've heard of, I know you could decline
Yeah,
the
you can.
polish, but I've heard from people before that they declined it and they still did it anyways. So, yeah, I'd be nervous to send it to them too. So, that's what I got for you today, my friend.
Jesus, I wasn't ready for that. I guess I'll just take my regular Tiffany.
It happens to also be the cheapest of the 4, so your wife might not kick you out of the house so quickly.
Yeah, what am I looking for to get into a 6263 when I'm, Well, what are the price ranges?
You're talking
Because I think the more I start hearing the prices, the more I'll start,
anywhere
like,
from, let's say,
adjusting to what it's going to cost me.
75 grand to 130 grand, 150 grand.
Yeah, it's crazy how people make such a big deal about modern watches nowadays. And I know a lot of times it's because they're rookies about box and papers. And then you have a $400,000 Daytona there that has no papers, no box, and I personally don't care.
Yeah.
You know,
You can't wear a box of papers. And people,
you cannot. The day you buy them and the day you sell it.
Yeah.
That's when you see the box and papers.
a lot of people who are new to vintage, they feel comforted by box and papers because they think it authenticates the watch. They don't realize that, like, box and papers can be faked also.
You mean like that Blueberry GMT?
Well, no, it's a perfect example. Like, not that this was like fake papers, but
Yeah.
there was somebody trying to sell a Blueberry 1675 GMT. Blueberry's all blue bezel.
Yeah.
It had box and papers. There's been a huge controversy, we talked about a little bit, over the authenticity and the, I guess, originality of the Blueberry inserts, where they came from, you know, when they arrived on the scene, because no one's ever seen an original one from the 1970s born on a watch.
The question is if it actually even came from factory like that.
Correct. So if they're even factory bezels, you know, Rolex has never verified it.
They've never claimed and said, hey, we made a small batch of 20 one time that were available, and then we decided not to use them, and then they leaked
There's
out.
been so many stories, oh, they were made for the UAE market, they were service bezels, but no one could verify any of it, okay? So I'm not saying whether they're valid or not. I have my own personal feelings about them, not really relevant. In this guy's sale, though, he listed the watch for sale with a, I guess you could say, appraisal from a major auction house.
Yeah.
And he was using that appraisal to basically say, hey, this watch is authentic. And I called him out on it. And I was like, hey, first of all, the person that wrote this appraisal at this auction house has nothing to do with the watch department, not like anybody relevant. Like, they don't know what they're looking at. You're probably just a client, so they signed a piece of paper for you, you know?
Yeah.
And you're using this to convince a buyer that your watch is authentic and good and all correct. And in my opinion, that's wrong, you know? And we went back and forth on, I think it was on Moda or something like that. Went back and forth on it, and you know, he was raging. And I'm like, look, I'm not saying your bezel is authentic or inauthentic.
Some people want stories to be real, you know, and they wanted the story to be real.
Right. I'm just saying, you know, having box papers, having an appraisal letter, like, that's not the end all be all, and that doesn't necessarily make your vintage watch legitimate.
I have a random question now that I just thought about since we were talking about this. What do you think that if you were to get this exact watch, let's just say, this is a good example, and you sent it in to get service, if they didn't take the bezel off?
No, people have done it.
And do they take the bezel?
So that's
right, because wouldn't they say, hey, the bezel's not
There's
authentic?
one collector all over Facebook that's like his proof that Blueberries are original, is that they mentioned Blueberry insert on one of, like, the service estimates or something like that.
But that's interesting there.
It's persuasive, but there's like counter arguments to that. You know, it's like, okay, this is like a service center in Texas. Like, they just wrote blue insert. They're not saying it was original. There was a fake letter being passed around. I don't remember if it was for or against, like somebody at Rolex saying we never produce these inserts, or we produce them. I can't remember which way it was.
The only way
that was proved then disproven to be fake. Like,
I guess they'd have to put it in writing that, hey, the blue bezel's authentic. This is the way it's going to happen.
Which they're never going to do.
I feel like if it wasn't authentic, you wouldn't look for any reason just to say, bezel's not original, this is what we want to charge you for the new one.
Yeah.
You know they are.
I mean, and the problem is that when these inserts were all the rage about 6, 7, 8 years ago, 10 years ago, there was huge premiums attached to it.
They look really cool.
They look fantastic. And there was huge premium. Like the bezel, you could sell a bezel alone for 15, 20 grand. And people were paying. So if you have a regular, you know, matte dial GMT that, say, let's just say for sake of numbers, it's 15 grand, but you're paying 35 because it has this Blueberry insert. Now there's all this debate about whether they're authentic or not. What's the premium, if any, for that insert now? And all the people who bought them, like, what do they do with them? You know, there are still, listen, I've seen them being sold as original still. And again, I'm not saying they're not.
Yeah.
I'm just saying I personally don't know. I have my own opinions. I've personally never sold one.
Oh, that's what I was about to ask you.
I've personally never sold one. How do you list this watch now for sale? Like, how do you describe it? Like, what's the,
listen,
you know?
It's very uncertain and tricky territory.
Right.
Because, especially if you want to pay the amount they're trying to ask for it.
Right.
If it was $5 grand, a little bit more, you could take the gamble. But if
Right.
they want 20 grand more than a regular GMT,
Yeah, and I don't think
I'm not
that
doing it.
premium's attached to it anymore. I think because of, it was actually a guy on Instagram who has since like gone in the wind, but he was like famous for like attacking vintage watches like that had problems that were not being disclosed and stuff like that. Or don't.
Do they make inserts aftermarket that are that good that you can't decipher if they're real or not? Because can't you just tell by the printing and the letters and the make of it?
Again, they've
how
all
you make it?
all the both camps have
They already
gone
went
through
through
like
all
the
of that.
pad printing. They've gone through.
I gotta
all of
dig
that.
through the Google
yeah,
and look at that.
Yeah, and on the side of for the blueberry inserts, that's what they say. Also,
Yeah.
that like the printing is exactly the same as like Rolex from the era. Like the pad printing's correct, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But can an insert be faked? I'm sure. I'm sure people, you know, if they want to go through the trouble, you
Yeah.
know, I'm sure it'd be a lot of time and money invested to make a all blue insert.
Yeah.
You know, make the mold and do this and do that. Like, is it worth it at the end of the day? Especially now with them not being worth anything. But I'll say this, and then we'll wrap this up. Especially this conversation is that I know of somebody, a dealer, a friend of mine, been on the channel, who in the late '90s was at a trade show and bought a stack of like 30 of them. For like a couple $100 a pop.
That's
when,
a red flag.
When no one cared, you know, and you know, sold some to this dealer for $300 a pop, and what, you know, but as like a novelty, not because they weren't worth anything back then. You know, there was not this $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 premium back then. Like he literally sold them and made like $100 bezel just for fun. You know, I don't know. Take that with what you will.
Before you wrap this
you
up,
know,
what do you have on your wrist?
oh, this is my personal 6536 Submariner, circa 1956.
Oh wow.
Small crown.
Oh, she's a beauty, man.
Yeah.
And this
it's no
is-
longer
this-
glossy. The
is
radium
this
is
the
like giving it like a
factory
nice
style bracelet?
No, I put that on. That's
Okay.
a gay phrase bracelet, straight link that I just like wearing it on.
What is this bracelet really for?
Maybe like a chronograph or something like that.
Oh,
you know, or something
yeah,
like that from the
that's what it
era.
looks
Yeah.
like.
Or even that's the style of bracelet that would have been on like a bubble back also.
Yes.
You know.
Okay. Yo, this thing's really nice.
And it just spoke to me. Like I love the
No, the case.
patina. The
and
case is
dial.
great. But the dial has like nice matting to it, but it's even across
even,
the dial.
yes.
Yeah, the lume colors,
Great color.
beautiful, all original radium.
This is a keeper?
I mean, I've had it for a while. I don't have any
How
plans
long
to sell
have
it.
you had it? A year?
A year? Yeah, a year.
I was gonna say at least a year.
I bought it
If
in
it's
auction.
at least
I
a
think
year, it's a keeper.
Yeah, I'd love it. You know what? And I think I bought it for a reasonable price. And every time I look at it and I consider selling it, I'm like, nah. I just.
I will hold on to that one
Yeah,
for a little
it's
bit.
the only sub I personally own. Like I just. Anyways, thank you for stopping by, brother.
Thank you for having me.
Let me know when you decide on Tiffany. Talk to the wife. Be that guy. I gotta
decisions-
talk to my
decisions
wife.
made.
I gotta talk to my wife.
Definitely not that type of guy, but no, man, absolutely. I like to watch. I mean, I already saw it on pictures, so. All right, man. Thank you.
Peace. I hope you enjoyed Eric and I sitting down talking through some watches. He did, after the camera stopped rolling, call his wife and get approval to buy the Tiffany GMT. So that one is going home with him. Lucky enough for him, and congrats on the purchase, Eric. Thank you guys so much for watching. As always, like, comment, subscribe. Anything you can do to help us grow the channel. Eric's making me laugh in the background. Thanks so much for watching. See you guys in the next one. Bye.